Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The concept of the woke mind virus. Now, of course, it's not a real virus, but it certainly seems to carry some properties of a virus. It's this sort of phenomenon that captures one's brain and just completely warps it and distorts reality for the then captured host. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around it. The delusion, the living in this alternate reality. These people are so incredibly out of touch. It's like their brains have been poisoned by propaganda. They just cannot see the most basic reality staring them in the face. No, instead, they genuinely believe things like, anybody who slightly disagrees with me must be a fascist. I can't be the problem. Maybe it's just narcissism. Maybe there's no woke mind virus after all. Maybe people aren't being captured. It's just the natural behavior progression of a full-blown narcissist. Maybe that describes the leftists the most accurately. There's no room for conversation with these people. There's no room for nuance, no room for debate, just blind, screeching hysteria and self-righteousness. And of course, delusion. Peak delusion. And boy, do I have a clip that totally personifies the concept of delusion. I got this interaction between Saki and Jon Stewart that shows us exactly how the modern leftist thinks. If you are not completely obedient to their agenda, if you even question their narratives, if you even entertain a conversation that isn't pre-approved by them and their regime, then automatically you must be part of some sinister right-wing ecosystem. Ooh, it's like meth-induced paranoia. It's the weirdest thing. Let's do a case study on the brain of Saki, shall we? We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this clip, and then let's have a conversation.
I will say, broadly speaking, what I'm going to say Democrats, I'm going to say people on the left do not do that the right does very well is support within the system each other. And what I mean by this is this. Theo Vaughn appears on Joe Rogan's show, right? He promotes what Joe Rogan's doing. But they all promote all of the things each other are doing and what the elected officials, I guess, are doing too. And the left is a little bit more kind of discombobulated in terms of supporting the different entities on the left. There is not a left ecosystem that matches the right ecosystem.
But Ailes didn't do that either. It was the principle, the ideological principles, not the party. He and Murdoch the same way. They're promoting an ideological worldview, right? That they believe is correct. And Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, I think, are different animals than any of this. Like, I wouldn't say I don't think they're part of any machine.
Don't you think they're but they are still in the right wing ecosystem? Wouldn't you agree?
No, I would think they're in. No, I would consider them in a more probably libertarian comedic complex, more along the lines of, and if you watch or listen to their shows, a lot of times it's just pure like goofing off.
Has nothing to do with politics, and oftentimes, but
almost entirely. But
they are supportive of the Trump enterprise, is what I mean. So maybe I'm loosely putting them in that category.
I think they are supportive, but not. They are not relentless in the Trump enterprise. Like, they are not Charlie Kirk. They are not Ben Shapiro. Like, they are very different animals. They are not invested in now that you get picked up and like go to the headlines of media. But on balance, that's not what their shows are about.
We don't call them out of touch for no reason. Clearly, these big Democrat thought leaders have no real understanding of the political climate. Clearly, these people are living in bubbles. They're so close-minded that they never actually seriously consider opposing perspectives. These people are so captured by left-wing tribalism that they can't even seem to fathom or understand the idea of talking about things, having conversations openly and honestly. That's what Joe Rogan does. But for her, it's so alien, it's so weird, it's so hard to understand that for her, people who engage in these types of behaviors like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn of all people, well, they're just right-wing. They're part of a right-wing ecosystem. This level of delusion is actually impressive. She doesn't seem to realize that people like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Theo Vaughn, RFK Jr., and millions of other Americans used to be on the left. Of course, until their party went complete batshit crazy. People like her and the rest of these establishment-thinking blue anon left-wingers have pushed people like Joe Rogan further and further and further away, but in reality, as they've been engaging in these pushing, what they've actually been doing is rowing their own boat further and further. It's that typical meme, right, where Joe Rogan hasn't really moved on his politics, the left has moved away from him, and then he's slowly realizing, well, we don't have much in common, and then in some weird sort of twisted way of thinking, the left has then convinced themselves that Joe Rogan's the one who's gotten crazy. He's the one who went through this right-wing, alt-right extremist pipeline, and then they gaslight themselves into thinking that they can no longer associate or talk to people like Joe Rogan. And now because of that, let's call it disassociation, to them, their perspective now is that he's part of a right-wing ecosystem. It's just so wild. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. It's hard to put the pieces together because it's just so completely delusional and insane. But basically, the simple fact is, at the end, Joe Rogan hasn't changed. They changed. You know, Democrats used to be able to have a conversation. They used to be able to debate ideas. They used to be able to challenge the right, accept differing perspectives, but then provide their own perspective and try to lay out their plans for the American people to make their own choices. But nowadays, they don't even engage in the conversation in general. Joe Rogan isn't a crazy person. He's not part of a right-wing system that isn't inviting to Democrats. It's this weird thing where after the 2024 election, again, people like Jen Psaki and others doing their post-election analysis where they're scratching their heads, asking questions like, how do we crack this Joe Rogan code?
During the acceptance speech, they shouted out the Nelk Boys, Theo Von, Joe Rogan. There was one other one. I'm sure folks have heard about Joe Rogan, but a couple of those other ones that Trump, Aiden Ross, that Trump did interviews with, niche outlets, but have huge audiences. And a lot of the people, not everybody, but a lot of people that are consuming those kinds of news environments aren't. It's not like, to your point, how it's not 2010, it's not like they're then watching the nightly news.
Right.
You know,
Or
like they're
reading
not watching
the
Lester at
Times.
night.
Right.
No offense to Lester. Right. You know what I mean? Like they're in their own bubble. And that's like the majority of the news that they're consuming. And it is going to be incumbent on Democrats and it's kind of funny that the Nelk Boys got mentioned in the acceptance speech tonight, I guess. But you also have to take this seriously and figure out how to talk to those people and how to have a message for those young men, because the Democrats do have a message for the young men, but a lot of times they weren't really trying to offer.
We need to figure out how to talk to these people. What do you mean figure out how to talk to Joe Rogan? You need to figure out how to engage in conversation? What does that even mean? Literally, all you have to do is just accept the invite. Joe Rogan was so nice and cordial.
Can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might
She
still
wasn't
do it,
gonna
and
do
I
it.
hope she does.
She's not gonna
I
do
will
it.
talk to her like a human being.
Joe Rogan wanted to offer Kamala Harris the same opportunity that he offered Donald Trump. He is truly a bipartisan man. I mean, he didn't endorse a candidate till all the way at the end. And he did it, honestly, kind of reluctantly so. But Democrats just can't seem to crack, how can we get on Joe Rogan? It's very simple. Just be honest and normal. Just be a normal human. But obviously, the left can't do that. That's the reality, because they live in a bubble. They live in a highly propagandized bubble. And the moment they leave that bubble, their entire worldview, their whole presentation shatters. And that apparently is everybody else's fault. When you listen to the copium, the delusion that they push out there, it's always everybody else changing. It's like this weird victim complex. Everybody's turning on us. Everyone is going crazy. Oh, they're all alt-right extremists now. No, you guys are the ones who have gone crazy. You've gone crazy woke. And you've built all of your ideas in a bubble. You've attempted to gaslight and propagandize the people. You've attempted to control information and censor people in order to propel your worldview and your policy priorities. And honest people like Joe Rogan see right through it and don't want to engage with that. That's not called being part of a right-wing ecosystem. You're the left-wing ecosystem that is not compatible with honest conversation. That is the truth. What a fascinating psychological phenomenon the woke mind virus really is. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.